Radujem se s vama I želim vam reći
I rejoice with you and wish to say to you that your brother Slavko was born in heaven and that he intercedes for you.
tako snažno odjeknule su ove riječi kraljice.
These words of Our Lady Queen of Peace resounded so strongly just one day after Father Slavko's death. That was significant, just like his life. He was a Franciscan who lived with heart. He put his entire self in the service of gospel of Our Lady's messages and serving to little men who is in need. Today, on the 25th anniversary of his death, we remember him with love, with gratitude.
Hvaljen Isus I Marija.
Praise be Jesus and Mary.
Radosno pozdravljam večeras
I'm gladly
nadbiskupa Alda Cavalija,
greeting tonight Archbishop Aldo Cavari, who is apostolic visitor, parish priest Father Zvonimir Pavičić, and all present Franciscans here, nuns, family of late Father Slavko, his companions, all of you parishioners, and all of you who are friends. We rejoice that we can be tonight here in such a great number, and once again, welcome here. And Father Slavko's life, we will recall Father Slavko's life in the following minutes as we look at a short documentary about him. Father Slavko Barbarić was born on March 11th, 1946, in the village Dragicina. He was born in a family of Matko and Luca Barbarić. He was born as the fourth of total for 6 children. He was baptized on the following day, March 12th, in Cherin. He grew up, he played, and he spent time with his companions. He was helping in a vineyard, and he was helping and working around tobacco. He was maintaining sheep, and he was not different than any other children in his time in the elementary school. Father Slavko in 1961 with a great success. After that, he decides to the vocation. Parish priest speaks about Father Slavko that he is talented, that he is healthy, that his family lives in the Christian way, that he has a desire for the Franciscan order, that he is there and very kind and very cheerful, along with the other candidates of Herzegovinian Franciscan province. He was designated to go to Dubrovnik, to the seminary in Dubrovnik. After graduating high school in June 1965, Father Slavko, on July 14 the same year, along with 4 other colleagues in Humac, he put on his Franciscan habit and he entered novitiate. There he remained for 1 year. After the year that he spent in novice, he started to study philosophy and theology in Visoki from 1966 until 1967. Then he went to Podgorica in Montenegro, and he was in military service, and the last months he spent in Mostar. After the military service, he continued to study philosophy and theology in Sarajevo from 1969 until 1970. After that, the management of province sent him to Schwaz in Austrian Tyrol, where he stayed until 1972, when he graduated. After completing theology study in Schwaz, he was ordained as a priest in Reute on December 19th, 1971. Father Slavko from 1972 was in Florentine in Austria as the assistant parish priest and as the assistant and the student of the pastoral theology in Graz, where he received his magistrate degree, master's degree in 1973. One period of his education finished, and then the time of pastoral service started. His first destination was parish of Chaplina, where he served as the assistant parish priest until 1978. The virtues that Father Slavko had when he served in pastoral way in Chaplina, as well as he was a great worker. He knew the spiritual needs of people, especially the youth, and he had the ability to work with them. This was something that remained. The management of the province sent him to the postgraduate study in Freiburg, and he was there from 1978 until 1982. The theme was conversion as the main task of studying and educating of Christian education of adults. He received PhD in religious pedagogy. In that period, he completed the courses as the psychotherapist and the special course of the mystical theology that enabled him to become certified leader of spiritual retreats. When he was in Florentine, Father Slavko was in Germany, and he found out that that lady was appearing, and he was working to finish his PhD. In the end of his study, he spent time in Medjugorje since the mid-April until the mid-September 1982. And there, with all of the attention of one scientist, with pedagogy and psychological perspective, he was interviewing visionaries who claimed they saw Our Lady. The fruit of these professional interviews is an article, Psychological Pedagogical Approach to the Visionaries. After his degree, Father Slavko was designated to be in the service as the spiritual assistant in Mostar, and he was engaged in the pastoral work, especially with the youth. And in the fall 1983, he was moved to Medjugorje, and he came to Medjugorje. Then, in the period from 1985 until 1988, he served in the parish of Blagaj. And from 1988 up to 1991, he was as the assistant teacher in the novice. After then, he came to Medjugorje, where he stayed until he died. Father Slavko used all of his strength and all of his ability, all of the energy and all of the time, all of the attention and all of the love he placed in the service of Medjugorje events. Very often he spoke with the visionaries, and he would spend time with the visionaries. He was reflecting on the messages of Our Lady, and he was trying to understand her intentions in Medjugorje. He was at the service of all of the pilgrims and to all those who were in need of any sort of help. In that way, he worked in different areas, and those areas were all connected with one tie, that was Our Lady. Father Slavko regularly led the evening prayer program. He preached. He founded seminars of fasting and prayer, international spiritual retreat for the youth, for the priests, and for the married couples. He was also leading prayers on Apparition Hill and Cross Mountain. He was leading the shows on the radio. He wrote books, and he met different people. He traveled around the world, and he was spreading the message of Medjugorje. He also established the fund to help talented students. He worked with addicts. And he also founded and established Mother's Village, as well as the association Merciful Father. There are many things that Father Slavko did, and it is very difficult to put all of that in a very short presentation. We can only conclude that he was always serving the Lord, serving Our Lady, and serving other people. He never protected his life, and he was always ready and prepared to help and to work. On Friday, November 24th, in 2000, after the regular prayer of the Way of the Cross with faithful on Cross Mountain, he died. next to the station where Christ's body is put in a tomb. All of the priests, all of the parishioners, all pilgrims, his associates, and all of the friends of Medjugorje were shocked by his sudden death. Father Slavko suddenly moved to eternity, and behind him he left a real treasure of the spirituality that Franciscans continue to nurture and to develop up to this day. Father Slavko was buried at the Kovačica cemetery, and his grave was a place of prayer for many faithful who in him recognized holy men.
in pace, get in freedom. Let's go in peace. Let the light.
Uistinu, toliko emocija.
Truly, so many emotions are here tonight as we look to this movie, but also during the entire day, as if this good Franciscan is still here and follows us, and his work and everything he did will be brought to us by his brother, Provincial Father Jozo Gribiš.
Fra Svetozar Kraljević.
Father Svetozar Kraljević.
Fra Marinko Šakota.
Father Marinko Šakota.
I njegova suradnica Milona von...
And his companion and associate Milona von Habsburg.
Izvolite.
Praise be Jesus and Mary. Once again, I'm greeting you sincerely. It is nice to see, to be able to see how many of you came here, so we would recall and remember Father Slavko, and we would say thank you for everything he did and for everything that he does even today. Father Jozo, you also as a provincial, you can be grateful to God because Herzegovina had
ste vi u stvari poznavali Fra Slavka i kako gledate danas na njegov život?
Hvala lijepa, srdačan pozdrav svima vama. Ja vjerujem da mi svi imamo iskustvo.
I believe that all of us, we have experience, that we meet special people who are different than the others. They can be from the same family, they can even be wearing the same clothes, they can be doing the same job, but they are different than the others. I met Father Slavko as a seminarian, later on as a priest. Very often we would be together. We had something that was connecting us together. I had a brother who was Franciscan who died, Father Ante, Father Slavko knew each other quite well back in those days. So you have people who are special, whether that is the gift of God that makes them what they are. What was fascinating me, which is obvious in this movie, and just to be honest with you, the topic that in the last year or two is really of a great interest for me, that is time. Father Slavko had time for everything and for everyone. Not just for him. Maybe that is the key. Time for pilgrims, time for those who are in need. Time to maintain everything that we saw in the movie.
Mislim da je to
the time that he knew how to manage this great gift of God, and you can learn from that. Also, we who are here, we need to say thank you, God. And during the night he wrote, and actually during 24 hours he was only serving to God and serving other people. Father Sveto said, if I'm not mistaken, 25 years ago on this day you were on Cross Mountain. Did you hear what happened and then you climbed up, or what was, how did it happen? You see, it was just a regular day, and we know Father Slavko was always going up the Cross Mountain. He was leading the prayer program on the Operation Hill on Cross Mountain. It was nothing unusual. And suddenly I remember that I was in my room, and suddenly somebody came and somebody said, they didn't say he died. Somebody said, Father Slavko is not well, and one of the priests is supposed to go up. So I felt something like a paralysis. I was not able. Suddenly you wanted to go to the church to take the holy oil, and suddenly then to be up there. It was like a disability. I wasn't able to do that. I was limited. So I went to the church. I took the holy oil. I sat in the car, and I was going up, and already up there, as I was approaching Cross Mountain, I was able to see that people were in a different atmosphere. They were ready to do something, and yet what is that they would do? I was running up as much as I could. I think I was in the 4th station. I saw the group of people. It was like a heavenly moment, earthly moment also. You see, he was dead, he died. You can see that clearly. And I said the prayer that we normally say for the dying people. With the holy oil, I made the sign of the cross on his forehead. And I think I said in that moment, this is how the servants of God are dying. Father Marinko, what would be your reflection of Father Slavko with the emphasis of on his life here in Medjugorje and his spirituality? What would you say? I think a great important moment is the fact that Father Slavko was very simple. This was a virtue, but also sometimes it can be a difficulty. And it was a difficulty because Father Slavko was simple. But just like Jesus said, beneath something simple, there's a treasure that's hidden. And I think it is important to know that Father Slavko was really a man who had many layers. Many were able to recognize that, some did not. But in any case, Father Slavko, I think it is important to be said for us, and we understand that, and I congratulate Father Zvonimir, parish priest, because this is a very important moment that we don't forget the value. And thank you, Father Zvonimir, for this, because we can see, according to the number of people who came here, how much Father Slavko meant to everyone. And the previous provincial, Father Slavko Soldo, was saying to me that I should be going to grave Father Slavko, and I should be looking and taking photographs, because people were coming all the time and taking photos. People prayed at his grave. Somebody said in a good way, the place of his grave became the place where men praise. What would I say now? We have a task here. Father Maurizio from Italy, when I was serving here in Medjugorje, he brought thousands of signatures from people from Italy who think that we Franciscans should really start the process for beatification and canonization. I gave that to Father Milinko, who is provincial. This is now in archive. Hubert Liebherr from Germany, he came, and thousands of signatures from German people that the procedure should start. I think there is a great task in front of us, that we start that we respond to what Our Lady really said.
Što reći?
There are many things to say, really.
Ove večeri. Milona, vi ste bili Fraslavkova prevoditeljica.
Ilona, you were interpreter for Father Slavko. You cooperated with him. How was it to work with him on a daily basis, to follow him? He was always giving 100% of himself. As Father Joseph said, he had time for everyone, not just for himself. This is really truth. He was never tired, and in the beginning maybe he would have like little time to rest, but then less and less. And I remember how I would write a letter to him in October 1985. Sister Janja invited him to go to Ireland, and that he didn't have passport, and then this life started just as if there would be a microphone. And wherever he needed interpreter, I would go. I didn't know how to translate even. We would travel so much, so many times, so many interviews with bishops, with priests, so many people. They constantly waited. And in Ireland, when we arrived once, I didn't even know what to expect. Father Slavko was very simple. He wasn't complicated. He was never tired. He was always ready. He was always prepared. He had time always. He was also very funny, because once he told me, I would be like, "Hen, I live in 1 square meter." And he always lived in the present moment. And I think that we as people, we don't live now. He always lived with his heart. He lived now. And the person who was with him was always be the only person. He was always present, as if he was the only person in the world. And this is something that I had to learn every single day. Family therapy, we would be in a small room, there wouldn't be any operations. Father Slavko and Father Medjugorje, they lived there, and it was this room now is the room of Aldo Cavalli. That was the room, everything was taking place in that room. You also mentioned Father Medjugorje. He was one of those priests who lived with Father Slavko. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be with us tonight. And he speaks about that in the video that we will see. But truly, he tried to speak about Father Slavko and about the prophetic dimension of his work. So let us see together. Father Zvonimir asked me, that is one of the rare living witnesses of the time that I spent with late Father Slavko, and all on the occasion of his 25th anniversary of his death, that I may share my memories with you, my memories of that time. I readily agreed out of respect and love for Father Slavko. Although lately my voice has not doesn't serve me any good. That is why I apologize. Thinking about what to say in diluted 10 minutes without repeating what I have already said or written about him on several occasions before, I decided to speak about something that strongly marked Father Slavko's life and his priestly work in Medjugorje, and which has so far remained somehow neglected. I'm thinking and referring to the prophetic trait of his character and of his work, which I'm convinced will come to light more and more with time. 25 years have passed since the death of Father Slavko Barbarić. After so many years, most of the people who left us fall into oblivion. The memory of them fades or disappears. There are few who cannot be harmed by the ravages of time nor diminish the role and significance they had during their lifetime. These are those generous individuals who did not live for themselves, but selflessly gave themselves to others, burning in the service of God, the Church, and their fellow men. These are prophetic phenomena, people who knew how to recognize the signs of their time, responded to them with their lives, and thus became the inalienable heritage of the Church even after they left this life. Such was our brother Slavko, and it is therefore no wonder that his grave is still visited in large numbers by pilgrims from all over the world, resorting to him in their needs. His books, created out of selfless service to pilgrims, continue to sell in very high circulations and in many, many languages. All this is the fruit of the life of this unique Franciscan who knew how to recognize the challenge to the Church and the world caused by the apparition of Our Lady in Medjugorje and respond to it. Faced with the local church's inability to find its way and the godless communist authorities' determined resistance to Our Lady and the plans she had with her arrival, Father Slavko without hesitation places himself at the service of Our Lady's plan, not fearing the consequences for himself and his future. That is why his relatively short life, marked by a strong example of serving pilgrims in Medjugorje and his written word, have a prophetic power that does not fade with the passing of time. And what prophetic speech is and what it means for a specific historical moment, a contemporary theologian tries to express in these words. Prophetic speech requires freedom from false considerations, but also the readiness to place oneself without any protection, completely at the service of God's truth. These words describe very well the priestly life of Father Slavko in the service of Our Lady and God. He was completely free from any false considerations and, as a priest, was ready with prophetic determination to place himself at the service of the truth, not expecting help or protection from anyone. He knew that he would be misunderstood and unaccepted by his own bishop and his religious superiors at the time, who were ready to close their eyes to the truth and enter into dubious and dangerous compromises precisely because of various considerations. He knew that he could, like some of his other Franciscan brothers, end up in a communist prison, but that did not scare him. He had trust in Our Lady's intercession and God's help, and that was stronger than feelings of any insecurity or fear. More and more contemporary theologians recognize in Our Lady's apparitions a prophetic voice similar to the voice of the Old Testament, prophets whom God sends to His people to strengthen them in the faith. Mary acquired her prophetic role the moment she readily, like the Old Testament prophets, accepted God's call and placed herself at the service of the realization of salvation. This role was confirmed at a moment when the drama of salvation was at its peak, when Jesus left her for His church from the cross as His mother. If Our Lady's messages are a prophetic call and encouragement to the Church for conversion, by placing himself at the service of these messages, Father Slavko made himself their prophetic voice. That voice resounded from the altar in his homilies, echoed in the confessional as he reconciled sinners with God and quietly touched wounded hearts in countless conversations and prayers with pilgrims who, in a personal encounter with him, sought comfort and encouragement in the troubles of life.
Tražili utjehu i ohrabrenje u životnim nevoljama. Taj glas
That voice has not fallen silent even today, but continues to speak quietly but powerfully from his books, which are the fruit of his prophetic life and work.
života i djelovanja. Nije Fra Slavko nastupao proročki samo svojom riječju,
Father Slavko was not prophetic just with his words, but also with his deeds. While many thought that for the addicts, the doctors and psychologists need to take care of, that war orphans and other victims of war should be cared for by competent social institutions, Father Slavko, in
na selu
Mother's village, bravely offered concrete help. He had nothing else to rely on except God's providence and Our Lady's intercession.
da bi se
In order to create the necessary infrastructure, to build the necessary facilities, benefactors had to be found, and they came.
i sve to samo po sebi došlo. Majčinu se
Mother's village became a miracle of Christian love and generosity in the service of helping the most vulnerable. The church authorities, from whom it would be logical to expect blessings and help in such endeavors, tried with all their might to prevent this work, claiming that Father Slavko was only doing this to force the church to accept Our Lady's apparitions.
ukazanja. On je ostao
He remained unwavering, patiently receiving new blows that hurt him greatly, but did not shake him.
neslomili. Nije za svoj
He did not seek any recognition for this during his lifetime, but it has come in our time. During his recent stay in Medjugorje, Monsignor Carballo, who is the former Minister General of the Franciscan Order and now a bishop serving in Vatican, discovered in the Mother's Village that the Mother's Village played an important role in Pope Francis' decision to make a positive statement about Medjugorje in the famous note, which should be thanked to Father Slavko and his prophetic vision and courage.
i njegovoj proročkoj viziji i odvažnosti. Na kraju
I firmly hope, in the end, that on the next occasion of the anniversary of Father Slavko's death, we will witness the initiation of the process for his beatification. He deserves this for his entire exemplary religious and priestly life, and especially for his strong prophetic commitment in the service of Our Lady and her messages to the Church and the world of our time.
Uvijek vrijedi čuti našega fra Ivana
It is always so good to hear Father Ivan Dugančić, and we thank him so much for these words. Father Jozo,
proročke vizije.
can we stop with this prophetic vision, all boldness of Father Slavko Barbarić?
Sigurno da možemo.
Surely we can.
Ja bih nazvao Fra Slavka
I would say to Father Slavko, and in the eyes of some people here, he was very controversial. And I think he is.
Ja mislim da su vam svi veliki ljudi kontroverzni.
I think all great people are controversial. If they are not controversial, then there's not much of them. Jesus was controversial for Romans, for Jews.
Sveti Franje bio kontroverzan za svoju
St. Francis was for that his own family.
za ovu našu lokalnu crkvu.
For our local church in Croatia, the Peanuts was controversial for both left and the right.
vas povijest neće zabilježiti.
If you are not like that, then history will not record you. I think great people are like that. That is why I would dare to put Father Slavko in that group.
Kako je ono rekao mali princ, samo se srcem dobro.
As Little Prince said, only with heart you can see well.
U svezi srca i molitve srcem i tako dalje.
So much was written about him.
Jer taj čovjek
I
postoji.
think this man fasted a lot, yes. And you see what is interesting for me?
Za sve. Ja se
He
vraćam.
had time for everything. When I was a student,
Slavko ima vremena, ajmo tamo neku dvoranu z mehanikom.
and when I would go to the hall, let's go and have coffee. But why do I say this? He fasted.
To me jako zaintrigiralo.
One American institute, that is something that made such a
I
controversy, and it's like they're treating dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And there's something interesting that they discovered, that people who fast, as if they don't have dementia, or even if they have dementia, it is not so big.
Pa valjda čovjek koji posti
So man who's fasting, who fasted so much, he has time for everyone. His heart would be so great. And if we go back in a biblical way backwards, it is a very important prophetic dimension. Without that, nothing will happen. That is why I think to fast and to be controversial is a way to holiness. And what you said tonight in the homily, one suffers for the truth, and he was like that.
govori
You see, I speak about that very often.
puno.
Our time is time with lots of lies. Everyone lies. Hardly, no one is not lying to you. It is very, very huge problem. And to fight for the truth is really worth to stand and to say how everything is, or to live that. This really has a big price. Or if we go back to the beginning of Christianity, this is something that was for Jesus too. He paid that price. We have many people who live just compromises. We have few people who truly care about that. That is why only these people will become great.
To je put Međugorja.
I think this is the way of Medjugorje too. I think this is the way of people who found in Medjugorje. And I think they are facing that.
I povijesti ovoga mjesta svakako.
And they are doing that in history of Medjugorje also. Father Sveti, it was interesting to hear about what Monsignor Kabadr said, how in the decision of Pope Francis to have the positive statement about Medjugorje, Mother's Village played important role, and even the workers of Mother's Village in conversation for our radio station Mir Medjugorje very often tend to say how Father Slavko was a visionary, how he was far above his time, that they were not even able to understand him or even to follow him. What thrills is really Father Slavko's love and vicinity towards those who are, the spirit of charity that he had all the time. And I recalled what Father Ivan Landika said, who was former Medjugorje parish priest. What fascinating me with Father Slavko was that he wasn't really just putting it through with the bad dimensions of life. So let's speak about that too. Father Ivan said, and he spoke about that prophetic dimension. He was always a step before us. He always thought in creative way, biblical way, boldly, and with him the word became flesh and the flesh became word. It was always this communication along with this. This is his mighty communication that was always impressing. He always found way to men, and he allowed men to find path to him. Just on a simple day, nothing particular is going to happen. Nothing particular was planned. So somebody came from Mostar and brought 3 children. They brought 3 little children. They didn't have any home. They didn't have any parents. Father Slavko met these children. He didn't calculate where to go, how to find a place, who will take care of them. He made decisions straight away. He entered divine communication with this very moment. And this is what the Eucharist is. He was doing what needed to be done, without compromises, without postponing. He didn't say, we will do that tomorrow, but we will do it right now. This is truly what I would recommend to you and to us, that we need to have that creative communication, divine communication, because Jesus was communicating with these people, that he found them hungry, so he would give them bread. And then the word came. Or we would go and a Korean woman met him. He was standing outside the parish office and she wanted to say something. He wasn't able even to hear. He was mighty with languages. But he immediately called someone in Rome, a lady in Rome, who listened to this Korean lady, and then he understood what this woman wanted. Church lives from this communication with God, with men, with the nature, and this is where he was great. It was great what he did with Mother's Village. He fed them, he gave the family. Mother, school, we can really be proud of these wonderful people who grew up to be very honest people, artists. So you see, when he started that communication, there was an explosion of love that happened. Hundreds and hundreds of people signed up. They entered the project of Mother's Village. The rivers of mercy, goodness, noble pilgrims who were generous, pilgrims who experienced different testimonies. It was really amazing. Milona, what was also amazing was the travel with Father Slavko. You traveled the world together with him, starting from Far East to South America. How did this look like? You can bring this closer to us. He was the same everywhere. When I hear everything that you're saying, it is so interesting. I was able to see what he was like here. And everywhere else we started with Ireland, and then Trinidad, Tobago, South America, China, Hong Kong, Australia. It wasn't just him, it was also Maria and Ivan. They would travel together with Father Slavko. I would translate for him, but they had this communication. People would wait. Sometimes we would for 6 weeks in Australia. Every day, thousands and thousands of people. And Father Slavko knew it wasn't about him, that he is important, but everyone is there. God is calling, and this is what he said here. Herzegovina is beautiful. We're all beautiful people, but people don't come because of that. But people are coming because God is calling. He was there, the same person as here. He was like a true priest and true Franciscan.
ovako mala, kako se kaže, mali kofer.
It was like a little suitcase,
Otišlo je ovako,
nothing else.
lijepo jednostavno. I ljudi su došli i došli.
People came, and they came there. And a lady appeared everywhere. The encounter were people.
Centralno je bilo molitva kao ovdje.
It was a prayer like here. Always when we would be there for the time of the apparition, when the visionaries were not present. Even when he was alone.
Broj jedan. Što Bog
That was number one. What God did here.
ovdje.
What was happening here. The whole day seems so strange.
Sebe povijest
He had history of people, everything that was there, everything that happened. Maybe nuns,
one kuvaju za nas. Ne može
they were cooking for us. Yes, it needs to be Franciscan school sisters.
živjeti.
Every charisma can live, even children. I remember when these three came.
Kako se kaže to? Odjedan put je bio kao otac.
He would be like a father to them. Little children in mother's village.
Vrlo kreativan. I svugdje
He was very creative. He spoke about so much,
je bio
just like here.
Fra Marinko, moleći,
Father Marinko, as we praise, as we celebrate the Holy Eucharist, Father Slavko became authentic witness of Our Lady, Queen of Peace.
a naročito mladih ljudi. Pa evo ne možemo ne
Especially of young people, and we have to remember that. And of course the Youth Festival.
Da, ja bih se nadovezao na jednu riječ Sanja, to je
I would do that. I would say he became.
Evo, kao što Stimil ona sada rekla, on je stalno rastao.
He grew constantly.
Dakle, Slavko ima u sebi jednu dimenziju koja
Father Slavko has a dimension, and his pastoral work is not limited to what he had to do, but it goes to where the needs of people are, and he was completely open for the needs of people.
moram spomenuti ovdje, Framika mi je to rekao.
I remember Father Mika told me this when he was in the Caritas in Sarajevo. There was a gathering of this Muslim and Catholic Christian charity institutions. They spoke about various projects, and this man from Muhammad Muslim institution, he said, people, this is really nothing in comparison to what Father Slavko Barbarić did during the time of the war for Sarajevo.
Starog mosta su on ustali, mi kažemo s lijeve strane, po jednu sliku za fond, musliman jedan, jeli, njegov atelje, pored starog mosta.
There was a atelier next to Old Bridge, and he said if it wasn't for Father Slavko Barbarić, I wouldn't even survive.
On je nalazio kanale da meni dostavi lijekove. Pa mislim, toliko je toga, a što mi ne znamo, čudesnog.
There are so many things.
Jedna liječnica,
We were in Puerto Rico. There was a doctor who said there were 20,000 people. Maria Visionary was there.
92, ne znam, tako nešto. Ona kaže, ja sam bila u kolicima. Pa Slavko, bilo nas je puno, 50.
I was in the wheelchair, he said.
Stavlja ruke na mene, moli. Ja sam ustala iz kolica.
And Father Slavko prayed over her, and she got up from the wheelchair.
Župe, ja očekujem to početi neke stvari govoriti.
I hope people from the parish would start writing and witnessing these things, because there are so many things. Father Slavko became. He was building himself constantly, being in 1982 we heard in the movie, after postgraduate study for 6 months, he spent with the visionaries. He was observing them.
Vidioci nisu grupa.
Visionaries are not a group.
To nije izvor odakle je ovo nastalo. Dakle, Mirjana živjela u Sarajevu, Ivanka u Mostaru, Ivan poseban na svoj način, ova posebna, Jakov 10 godina, dakle nisu grupa, nisu ikad postali grupa. On je rekao, izvor je Gospod.
He would say always, the source is Our Lady.
Povjerova, on je,
After he believed.
to je temelj njegov. Nakon toga, on,
After that, he completely surrendered.
ja ono pokušavam, ne znam ni ja, ali on se potpuno predao. Gospi za časnike, za Medjugorje.
He surrendered to Our Lady, he surrendered to pilgrims, he surrendered for Medjugorje, he understood.
Nas, da Gospod
Our Lady wants us, that Our Lady has need for people, that people surrender to her.
sam taj.
And he understood, I'm that, I need to do that. He completely surrendered to that.
Medjugorje. Nadalje,
But he was always coming back to Medjugorje. He was doing.
on je činio, Gospod kaže, molite, postite, on posti, kao što svi provincijalni rekli.
Pray and fast.
Gospod kaže, molite nabrdo i molite pred križem.
Our Lady said, go and pray before the cross. He was climbing up Risha Hill Cross Mountain every morning, adored Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. He introduced that. He was doing everything always. He was living Our Lady's messages. And he understood what Our Lady wanted, and Our Lady wanted a school. And this is where I would stop, because there are so many things to say. But the school is also what he left in his books. Father Juzo, from the very beginning, beginning of his work, he was writing. His books were translated in 20 languages, published in millions of copies. In the titles of his loaf, there's always heart or love. Or just as you said, this was the center of his life. And this is a really great treasure that he left us. You cannot do anything without love. In the biblical theology, the heart is the essence of
pobrine za njega, sve ostalo se stavi na svoje mjesto. I evo to je Slavku je to bilo često.
And this was very often for Father Slavko.
Ja vjerujem da to čovjek, kad je on to stavio na svoje
I believe when man puts that at his own place, then this dimension he had time for everything, even
ono što danas milioni čitaju. Ima vremena za to. Pa je vjerojatno zbog tog srca i zbog toga što mu je bitak bio na mjestu.
and probably what all of them said, he established Mother's Village and the Merciful Father community. He had time for pilgrims, for Franciscans, for domestic people, foreigner people. He had time for poor.
Majčino se ovo nastalo
Mother's Village was made in 90s during the famous song.
Bože čuvaj naše golubove i sirotinju, bogati se i tako sami za sebe pobrinu.
God protects poor people. When everything was there,
Ja sam spomenuo namisli, meni je to fascinantan, ja nisam tada bio ovdje, ali evo to je očito zaživio, sve to na svu sreću je počeo
and always there for Father Slavko. Father Slavko was working memoirs.
pokret koji se ovdje dogodio, više cvijeća, manje smeća, pa ljudi Boži, ajmo to opet. Ajmo opet. A ja pretpostavljam da to dolazi od ovoga. Ako srce uspiješ staviti na svoje mjesto,
If you put the heart at its own place, then you will care about that. I'm really bothered with that.
smeća puno u medijima, smeća puno u politici,
There's much garbage. Much garbage everywhere. Christians are not engaged with their hearts, which is an important topic, or if they are engaged with heart, well, there will be little garbage around us. Now, when you mentioned garbage and everything that he did,
90-ih mi kao framaši
I think that we in 90s, even on Saturdays, we would go and clean the woods, where later on the Garden of St. Francis was developed, and it was our task every Saturday. So on one occasion he came to see what we did and how did we do that, and I remember he put a head on the rock, a leg on the rock, and he said, if you only knew how much garbage I took out from here before anything was done. And you know what? He said, I found books, I found notebooks with names. I put that in a bag and I took that to people at their doors. And I told them, this is yours. Yes, Father Svetozar was with him on that occasion. But they didn't get the nice expression. Father Svet knew that. And he shared a very interesting thing. When he would go back from prayer of Cross Mountain or Apparition Hill, when everything was over, and Father Slavko was coming back with that sack, and he was collecting garbage. You're the witness of that. It's better that you say that than me.
Sveto, izvolite.
Ja imam potrebu nešto drugo kazati.
I need to say something else.
Ovo društvo ovdje.
I would like to ask these people here
Jedan aplauz za
just to give an applause for 3 women and hundreds of others. This is our Milona, Rita Falsetto, Shvani, and so many others.
opet Fraslavko je bio, mi govorimo o tom čudesnom Fraslavku.
Speak about this great Father Slavko,
On i sebe uvijek nalazio na
because he always found the best from him, and even in those people who were his associates, he found the best in them. And he would invite people and he would give them, assign them different tasks. So a modern contemporary woman comes here. She's hoping that maybe she would be here for a little while, but she wasn't leaving. Milona stayed for years. Rita stayed for years. Shvani stayed for years. And imagine how much strength you had that he had when he was working in what he did in that time. With the help of these women, St. Paul had holy women who were along with him. It is a biblical phenomenon. And we priests should not forget that we are working on that. In that way, church is going to be stronger.
Mogu ja nešto drugačije reći? Može jedan pljesak za Svetozara?
Just we need to give applause to Father Svetozar too.
Ako ja smijem nešto reći ovdje.
If I can say something here. And you know, when you promise something publicly,
Ja sam ga molio, počeo čim se slušati, a to je da piše te memoare.
he should be probably writing these memoirs from all of our brothers of these times, up to 90s.
Sela, milosrdnog oca,
Mother's Village, Merciful Father,
stao nam
the closest image of the closest witness of these times remained Father Svetozar.
da kažem, on vam je nastavio to raditi mnoge godine, 16 godina je bio tu,
He continued to do that, and Father Slavko continued the work afterwards, and now he's doing the same. In Mostar and Dompes, he's engaged with poor people. So out of love for Father Slavko, please help his projects too.
U stvari, ako postajemo učenici,
If we become disciples of Father Slavko, it is natural, then
Tu valjda mi fratri učimo svi.
Eto ga, znate sada što vam je činiti, a osluhnimo malo kako
we know which we should be doing.
Slavko isječke iz knjige u školi ljubavi približit će nam fra Ivan Hrkač.
And this is little extract from Father Slavko's School of Love, and Father Ivan Hrkač will read that to us. Our latest message on November 20th, 1986. Dear children, also today I invite you that with special love you do and you follow all of the messages that I'm giving you, dear children. God doesn't want you meek, but God wants you to surrender to Him completely. You know that I love you, and you know that I'm burning for you out of love. Therefore, dear children, also you decide for love, so you would be burning out and you would get to know from day to day God's love. Dear children, decide for love, so growth would prevail in each one of you, but not human love, but God's love. Thank you for having answered my call. One must decide to love and grow in love by surrendering oneself to God. Although one should always keep in mind that love is a grace and a gift, a free decision and a conscience and free search for that grace are also necessary. Whoever decides to love will come to know the beloved person more and will begin to burn for him or her. The problem with many human loves today is precisely that this love loses its devotion, its fervor, its readiness to be for others over time. This means that human love tires. Divine love, however, burns for us. The same is true of Mary's love. Therefore, lukewarmness and indecision are unworthy of the fervent love that is given to us. Whoever is lukewarm and indecisive remains halfway, gives himself or herself partially, incompletely. This partiality and incompleteness are especially evident if love for things and persons so seduces us that we have neither room nor time for God. If our heart burns more for persons and things than for God, then what should not happen has happened, a substitution that is not worthy of men, a creature of God. Mary in this message and is warning us with much motherly love to remain in true love. Divine love is not objecting the human love, but guarantees it, provides it with a foundation and meaning. Human love, which is excluded from a lifelong connection with divine love, can easily become not only a hindrance, but also a complete obstacle to divine love. Mary also tells us that if we overcome all the daily trials in which our love finds itself, and if we emerge victorious, loving God more and more fervently, then we also grow in human love.
Tada rastemo I u ljudskoj ljubavi.
Hvala lijepa Fra Ivanu što nam je...
I thank Father Ivan because he brought us the words of Father Slavko Barbarić. Everything that Father Slavko did is a school of love for all of us. And truly, as we already said, he was close to those who were at the edge. Also to addicts, to those who are lost. Every day he was with the youth from
o toj njegovoj komunikaciji
We come back to his communication with people that he met in an existential way. A man comes to him, and this is in the concrete examples. We have the famous example of dear person, really holy person, Slavko Mustapić.
nesreće životne udarile i dijete, mladić, hoda ulicama grada Mostara.
And he was a young man. Nobody is there to take care of him.
Postoji taj mladić, nema nikakvih kompromisa.
There are no compromises. He took him in his own home.
Nakolo nije s tom karizmom ti
Janakolo is with that charisma.
osniva
And he started. There was a demand
za tom zajednicom,
and demand for this,
kako se to kaže, gdje je dobio inspiraciju,
where he received inspiration.
besprizorni, koje je Fra Slavko okupljao i svakoga jutra kada smo mi vraćali se istre,
And every morning when we were coming back from Holy Mass, he would never come.
iz stepenica kod one čatrnje i tu je planirao
And there he was planning.
društvo.
Mario Mijatović was there. He was helping Father Slavko also.
Planirali su kakav će biti dan i
They were planning what the day would be like, and then they would start to live this day.
evo bliski neki suradnik s njime
I was close associated with them
majčinog sela.
in the works in Mother's village.
Kada čovjek je spreman nešto učiniti,
When man is prepared to do something, God's providence is there, and it will follow that.
Slavko gospodina. Odnosno tu je neki
It was as if the Lord followed Father Slavko, not Father Slavko followed the Lord. It was like interesting communication.
Fra Marinko, opet se vraćamo na vas. Uz sve ono što smo već spomenuli,
Everything what we mentioned,
da smo već Mladi fest, seminari, molitve, posta i šutnje.
youth festival, seminars of retreat, of fasting and prayer, all of that lives even up to this day. We can thank Father Slavko for that. He was in the service of Our Lady Queen of Peace. Yes, we already said that.
Stao i on se
He grew constantly. He was completely in the service of that. And with his entire being, he was in the service of Our Lady.
jako
He was a man who was very, very clever, very intelligent. He was studying in a great way, but he knew that intelligence wasn't enough. It is not just enough to be intelligent. What is also needed is a will. One needs to have will. He had a will. Furthermore, one needs to have open heart. Open heart that notices he had that.
je Gospu najprije, otvoreno srce koje čuje potrebe, evo, djece, potrebe svakoga.
He needs to hear the needs of children. Whoever was in his vicinity,
Kaže, idite u prirodu. On je čuo potrebe prirode, skupljao
he needed to hear the needs of nature.
velika. On je to vidio.
He would see that and he would say, let's go.
Smo, dakle, to
We were collecting everything.
osjetio.
He was a man who would feel need.
Konkretan.
He was concrete. He was very intelligent, but also he had degree in theology and science.
Na zemlji. On znao sageti, dakle, do zemlje.
He knew how to bend down to the earth.
Ti spomenuo onu sobu gdje su ukazanja bilo tu i
You mentioned the room of the operation room. They slept together in that room. And then he would turn the beds and it would become a working room, and also the room where the apparitions were on the right hand side of the parish office.
Htjeli ući na ukaze. Naravno da je to mala prostorija, ne mogu svi.
It was a very small room.
Krunica, dakle molitva za zdravlje.
He led the prayer.
On je zatvarao crkvu stalno, a to je opet bila borba.
And it was always a struggle. And people wanted to stay in the church all the time.
Stalno.
And he would fight against those who were taking photographs. He would say, please pray. People who were looking at the sun, no, look, don't look at the sun, look at the altar. He was a man who was so concrete. He understood Our Lady literally. Our Lady was asking for a school. She said, I want to teach you how to pray. I want to teach you how to pray. I want to teach you how to love. He understood that. He opened a school of the lectures. So many lectures. I get tired with one. And I did not know how many a day he would have. He had seminars, retreats. He understood this is really necessary for the organizers of the pilgrimages and also spiritual retreats. For the youth festival, they need a spiritual retreat. He wasn't fighting. He wanted that. Young people were celebrating New Year's Eve, drinking, going out, but he was introducing something different. Many were saying, oh, I needed to have a good doctor, a good solicitor. Everyone wanted excellent doctor. What did he do? He introduced that for the students. He wanted to help them. So many things that were absolutely great. Milona, you said also how always and everywhere with Father Slavko you could feel the strength, the power of priesthood, and when men would be in his vicinity, they would feel that Father Slavko cares for him, that he listens to him, that he gives him advice, wants to help him. But also this encourages us to think about that. Of course, his education, everything he knew, this was helping him a lot.
Pitam te, dakle, za njegovu snagu svećeništva u svakodnevnom životu.
Da, to je bilo 100%. Ja. Kao sensation da on ima srce Isusovo u sebe.
I was sure that he had heart of Jesus. As Father Slav, when Saint Francis died, he said we didn't do anything. Yes, the truth and also not truth, but when you see love, when you have more love, then you can see that you didn't do anything. Every day I would be so tired so many times, but he would never get tired. He would never have any pain, nothing. But when he started to feel his heart, he said one day, I'm tired. But he started something then. And he said, Sophia and you also know that your father died young, and we would speak a lot about that. And he would say on many occasions, I would die young too. No, this would be too easy for you. You need to suffer a little bit more. But he died and he was only 54 years old. He knew that he wasn't going to die when he is rested, that he wants to be tired when he dies. He wants to work until the end, but he knew that he didn't have much time. That is why this was 100% of him. I would feel if he always said it was all about mission. It was Our Lady, the visionaries, and every pilgrim we would just serve. He always wanted to be 100% Franciscan, 100% priest, nothing else. He never thought about himself. I'm a foreigner, I came from Germany. I learned everything here. all of my life.
Bravo, hvala vam Milona od srca na svemu.
Thank you, Milona, for everything.
Jozo, znamo da je
Father Jozo, we know that Father Slavko wanted to document and to finish everything, how important that is today. It is very important. We live in time of speed, much information, and also that people are forgetting it is important to write. And if something is not written, it is as if it didn't happen. So instead of any comments to this answer, I would just read
ono što je napisao Rita.
what was written by Rita Falsetto. I think this is very important what she wrote.
Bio sam tamo kad je Slavko umro.
I was there
Ako
when Father Slavko died. I saw him slowly sitting down. I ran to him and I was trying to see how he catches his breath. I didn't know what to do. Except I thought that he probably had heart attack. Of course, I started screaming and calling for help. Father Slavko died very quickly. It probably only took 30 to 35 seconds. When he passed away, I had to tell myself that now I should cry and be very sad. It's hard to explain, but at that moment, I was filled with such a deep and strong peace. I knew that everything was going to be all right.
baš sve biti dobro. Jednostavno sam
I just knew it was meant to be that way.
dok je
While Father Slavko was lying there, a physician came running and tried to feel his pulse. He said he had passed away.
jednom je
Suddenly, Father Slavko raised his head, opened his eyes, breathed his last, and bowed his head. The doctor and I looked at each other in surprise and knew it was over.
je to gotovo. Nosili
We carried him down from Cross Mountain. The road was very slippery. I think it took us an hour to climb down. Father Svetozar met us at the 4th station. He gave Father Slavko the last rites, and we loaded him into the ambulance.
i to je bio moj rastanak.
And that was my departure with him. It's important to write.
njegove suradnice Rite koja
This is Rita, his associate, who in that moment was with him. It is important to write that and to keep that. And thanks be to God that some of his homilies remained written down. The homily from
prisjetimo se u nastavku.
Let us remember what he said.
Božanska riječ nam se nudi. Nudi nam se božansko jelo.
Divine word is offered to us, divine food is offered to us. Heavenly bread, communion. And what do we often feed ourselves with? What do our children feed ourselves spiritually? What do our youth feed themselves with? What do our families feed themselves with? What do they watch? What do they see? Doesn't that look, brothers and sisters, often really like resembles suicide? I don't know if it's true. I wish if it weren't. I heard that this year or last year in Split alone, addiction increased by 300%.
Na što to izgleda?
What does that look like? And where do we feed ourselves? One of the addicts who truly received the grace of healing here said, I used to prepare myself a hellish cocktail of alcohol, pills, and drugs every day.
Sada vidim.
Now I see. And I wouldn't give up this peace that I have received for anything in the world. He attends Holy Mass and Holy Communion every day, because it is my food, he says. How much do we see, brothers and sisters, what God offers us? How much do we hear? Here you see, these apparitions and events of Medjugorje are nothing more than another attempt by God, through Mary, as a mother, to place a merciful hand on our hearts, on our eyes, on our ears, and to say, open up, look, listen, see, follow, convert. Because if we do not convert, both as individuals and as a nation, we cannot hope for anything good. Why? No one needs to be a great prophet to guess how a student will finish school, a student who will not study. No one needs to be a great prophet. Where will someone who becomes an alcoholic end up? No one needs to be a great prophet who first starts playing with that small, petty drug. Venerable Father, it's nothing, just like a little bit. We know where that ends. No one needs to be a great prophet where can an individual or family or nation end up if we do not see clearly and if we do not convert. That is why the call to conversion, this offer that God gives us here, to open our eyes, to stop, to change directions a little, is actually a great chance. So let it not become ordinary for us. May what is happening here and generally in our churches and at the altars always be a great daily miracle which will move us from our spiritual deadness, so that we could really have more chances and survive, so that our children, so that our young people have more chances for life. This is why God sends Mary this time. Let us allow her tonight too to lead us to Christ, so that He then, as a light, illuminates us, so that we may open ourselves to this light, so that we may change our lives and that we may be better with each other. Amen.
Da, to je bio
That was Father Slavko.
propovjedi. Govori aktualno je i dan danas.
That is very updating. How was it to live with him?
On je uvijek bio u akciji.
He was always in action.
Radio vragu o glavi.
He was always doing something dangerous.
Nije bilo gubitka vremena.
He never wasted time.
Bili smo
I remember once
gore na onoj zemlji majčinog sela.
we would be there in Mother's village. So he would be locking up.
Općinom da bismo mogli dobiti ovo da upravljamo. Šta misliš kako bi se tu s te odluke, ti trenuci bili odluka, kako bi ovo bilo najbolje zvati? Šta misliš?
This would be, what do you think about that? He would say, perfect, these are the moments. Maybe the Garden of St. Francis became part of our growing up, of our memories. I mentioned these encounters, these communications, this readiness. Željko was creating him and he was creating Željko also. Željko Mustapić, this is like some sort of common interaction. There was also other thing of Father Slavko. When we were in Mehana, how many square meters? 10 square meters. For years we had that space where we would watch maybe games or matches, we would talk.
spremao za...
as if
On je možda jedno mjesec dana svaku večer kad je dolazio
every night when he would be coming, he would bring us a bottle of wine so we could spend together. It wasn't any wine.
50 godina staro. To je neka...
It was always like vintage wines, precious bottles of wines.
Tako se družili. Ako je mogao šalu napraviti na to...
And if he could joke in you, if he could joke about that, it was very, very important.
U šalu i neki vic i tako.
He always looked for opportunity to joke. When he died, we looked under bed. 2 more bottles were there, as if he wanted to say, continue to celebrate.
Milona, imate li vi neku zanimljivost, nešto
Milona,
susreta vaših s njim što biste...
do you have something that you want to share? Yeah, there are so many things.
Puno na pamet. I jedan dan, ja mogu to reći jer on mi je pomagao stalno, no?
One day he was always constantly helping. We were in Split, or we were there alone.
Nas je donio Mužić, ja I Marija. I jedan dan gospa je, ja sam
And one day Our Lady, I was there alone at the apparition, and Our Lady responded, and I'm all excited. And we were running. We called Father Slavko.
Odgovorila, ovako ja, histeriš. I on kaže, I, šta? I kaže,
And what? What do you mean what? So just for the second I thought, what is happening?
I on meni kaže, Milona.
And then he said to me, Milona, this is the faith of the Catholic Church. You pray for something, God hears you, and God responds to you.
Opet, jer gospa je odgovorila. Ali to je bila velika škola.
This was a great school.
To doživjeti.
And the priest told me how to experience that.
Da.
Fra Marinko, I vi ste blagoslovljeni, Fra Slavko.
Father Manko, you be blessed with Father Slavko's presence. What does he mean to you today? Just to recall some of the events, what youth festival had to be, maybe, I think it was 1995. We were coming down the cross mountain. He said, what is wrong? Are you tired? So we came down and he said, let's run a race. And he was faster. He was faster. So the youth festival was over. We would be there in that little room. And it was like a really little room. So I said to him, Father Slavko, 2 days after the youth festival, it was so beautiful at the youth festival. And he was silent. He looked at TV, and then I said, it was so great. And he said, what? This was past. For him, that was over. It's over, it's gone. What can you learn from him? As Milona said, he lived in today. He lived in this moment. When the day ends, when the day starts, we could speak so much about this. I learned from him. It is possible. It is possible. Just worry about that. He was always saying, I prefer those who get up, who work, who fall down and then who remain sitting and they're afraid not to make mistake. He loved those. He loved those people. This was possible. This was miraculous. What does that mean? Love is not enough. Love needs to be free. It is normal that you suffer, but you will not be able to carry this. You need to have you need to do that. People respect you, people thank you, and you need to do that. But everything you do out of love. What else can I learn? It's a freedom. I like the watch, and he said it was even a watch where his name was engraved. Somebody gave it to him, but he gave it straight away. One woman from Austria, Medjugorje, she was staying even in Chitluk, and this woman said, I was in Chitluk and I saw very nice tapestry work.
Mi bili na razgovor, imali problema, išli u Fraslavka na razgovor, ja ugledala goblem, ta žena, domaćica.
So she said, I saw this tapestry work. Father Slavko said, it's nice and you can take it. It was her work and she gave it to Father Slavko, but it was in someone else's house because he was giving away everything. There was a woman when he worked in Chaplina, and she said what to do. Since he was a student, he was doing everything, he was typing everything. Father Slavko, you can have a shirt. No, no, no. You can give this to someone else. I have 2 shirts. Or one man who told me we were in the Bishop. We were about to have the prayer encounter, and Father Slavko. And there was like a big snow. Father Slavko was not able to come. But you could hear him coming. He walked. And he was in sandals. And we said, Father Slavko, aren't you cold? No, I'm not. I have wool socks. There are many, many interesting things that you wrote about in the book. Just one thing, Father Michu, it's going to be my newly ordained Holy Mass. Why did you choose Father Slavko? And Micha told me, Father Slavko is always late. You're not preparing for the homily. He doesn't care whether he's in Shudmanci or in cathedral in Beč. And Father Slavko said some are just preparing for homilies. So Father Jozo, we started this evening with Our Lady's words. So much hope, so much encouragement, and everything else that we spoke about here witnesses to us about his. Can we expect the initiation of the process for beatification? What do you say? In our province office there are many, many boxes, petitions. Father Marinko mentioned some. You need to be fasting. Let's give everything else to God. Let us pray and fast as Father Slavko did. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for all. Thank you all, dear friends, dear parishioners, priests, Franciscans, nuns, that this evening you spent with us.
u izravnom prijenosu u programu radio.
And all others who were there and who were following us in foreign languages, we greet you all. May you all be accompanied with peace and good. And as we are departing, we will be listening to a song that's devoted to our father Slavko. Not far after his death, this song was created, and it is going to be given by Anna Maria and Silvia Bošnjak. Peace and good to all of you. Have a blessed evening.